Okay, and welcome back to the Hot Lap. It's Mal and James back with you, talking Formula One. It's 1:30 in the morning for me, so I'm assuming it's lunchtime for you.
Exactly. Yes. Thanks for having
Nice.
me back, Professor.
Yeah, nice to speak. What did you think of the Japanese Grand Prix?
Fantastic. I can see why the drivers love that track. The weather was fine and perfect,
Yep.
and yeah,
There
Max
was,
did what he did.
yeah, no, it was good. There was a rumor, not a rumor. There was a tiny chance of rain for race day, but that kind of went away. It started off as I think like 40, between 60 and 40%, and then it kind of withered away, which is a shame really because I think it would have made the race interesting because it's a really good track, but and I think the capital B is it wasn't the most exciting race. Really, I mean, there wasn't really a fight for the lead. Perez, it looked okay, and then after like 10 laps, you knew he wasn't even going to come close, did you, to Max?
Exactly. It's run away again as usual.
Yeah, yeah, he was. I mean, yeah, and obviously, when we're here, I mean, let's talk about then, because I know you wanted to. Uh, Kind of like what's going to be happening next year, who's going to be in what seat. We've just had Fernando Alonso confirmed for Aston Martin, which I think you're saying wasn't the biggest surprise to you in the world. It kind of like was a move that made sense. Um, but what do you think is going to happen to the other? What, in your opinion, Mal? What do you think is going to happen to the other teams? Who do you think is going to be driving for them? I know it's hard, just throwing it out there, but
Yeah, well, I think Max is pretty solid with staying with Red Bull.
yeah,
Sainz, I think, is going to sign with Mercedes. I think that's the best option for him at the moment until 2026 comes along, and then that will change everything, of course. Uh, Edit this bit out. Let me have a little bit of think. Kimi Antonelli to Mercedes? I don't think so. I think they'll maybe reserve driver, but I think they want him to come to get a little bit more experience. I think,
yeah,
but they really want him.
yeah. So who do you think will end up then? If it's not going to be because Kimi Antonelli, because I think he's a really good, but I don't think at the bearing in mind we've only had a couple of F2 races. I wouldn't say he's set the world alight where you think this guy's going to be absolutely a world beater straight away. Where we've had other people in the past, like Lewis Hamilton in GP2 at the time, before it was called F2, ended up doing really well and winning almost quite comfortably in his first season. And the year before that, it was Rosberg winning in quite comfortably his first season. And we haven't really seen Kimi Antonelli do that yet in F2. So if he's not going to be, if he's going to be, you're saying, maybe too much of a risk for the Mercedes seat, who do you think is going to be in that Mercedes seat? I mean, I know you mentioned Carlos Sainz. I know we mentioned maybe to Red Bull, but he's one. Alex Albon possibly. Esteban Ocon is still technically, I think, a Mercedes driver. But would you want him in that seat? Fernando Alonso was rumoured, but even Fernando said, well, why would they go to that seat at the moment when Aston Martin's faster? Okay, so, I mean, who do you think?
Well, I think Aston Martin are really wise, and Fernando was really wise to stay with Aston Martin. I think that'll probably see him out for the rest of his career,
Yeah.
which will probably set up a legacy, I think, for Aston Martin. Gee, are they going to kick the Stroll kid out? And you know,
Yes. Well, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, you're down to the owner, Stroll. I don't think, like we said, I think in the comments and stuff, and speaking the other day, I don't think Stroll is that bad a driver. You've got to be really good to be in Formula One and to be able to drive those cars. But he's too inconsistent. He's been up there, he's been quite good, but then he's not good enough consistently enough, and that's the problem with him.
yep, I'd have to agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And also, I mean, as I said, you are. Imagine you're on the board of Aston Martin. Can you really take yourself seriously as a sports team when you have Lance Stroll, when you've got a former champion like I think Dragonov there, but when you've got so many other drivers that would be better than him that you could sign? I mean, imagine Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz, for example. You know, or Alex Albon instead of Stroll. There's quite a few drivers you could pick instead of Lance Stroll.
Yes, indeed, there are. Um, Ocon and Gasly they're sort of really down on their luck with Alpine at the moment. But it'll be really interesting to see if the Andretti team buys them out and who their driver pick will be. That's one to watch for the future. But yeah, there's so many up and coming drivers that could also take that seat if Stroll decides or they do move them on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting. It's interesting that you talk about Andretti as well, because they're the ones. What has really wound me up at the beginning of this year is Andretti got rejected by Formula One. Formula One said a big fat no. The FIA said yes, but then Formula One, who hold all the commercial rights, all the commercial contracts, said no. One of the reasons is the winners fund, basically. That means instead of splitting it into 10 pieces, they're going to have to split it into 11. But Formula One, they call it the Concord Agreement, which is this big contract that bound all the commercial rights of Formula One. They have space for 12 teams. And I don't know why, and they said no to Andretti. And this is, I mean, we're looking now at a team where Alpine, a works team, is now basically the new Minardi at the moment. They're right at the back, aren't they? And you've got Williams that don't have enough chassis to race. And they're going on about Andretti won't add anything to Formula One. I'm like, what? I don't know. I think it's crazy. I'd love Andretti could buy out Alpine, absolutely. But if they don't buy out Alpine, I think they should be on the grid in 2026. We need more drivers and more cars. I don't understand what the big deal is. I mean, I don't know. Are we missing something?
Well, I think it would be nice to see a couple of extra teams there. I mean, because there's so many up and coming drivers that are deserving of a seat in Formula One. I think maybe the other teams are being a bit precious.
Yeah.
They'll just have to agree. What?
No, Mal, I completely agree with you. I think the other teams are indeed being a bit precious, and I get it. They want to be selfish, they want to look after themselves, but at the end of the day, like I've always said, it's people like yourself and like you and I. It's the fans that make the sport. Without the fans, you're not going to have a sport. And at the moment, it's fairly, no fault of Max's, but it's fairly boring. So next year, in 2026, even if a new team came in, it will be something that's quite exciting. Yeah, so I guess, I don't know. I don't know. Do you think, obviously with Alpine not doing very well, what do you think is going to happen to Gasly and Ocon? Their options potentially are fairly limited. Are they?
Well, I haven't really thought of the. Will they decide to move on, perhaps, because both of those drivers are pretty good drivers, and if somebody offers them another seat, I'm sure they'll probably take it at the moment.
Yeah, that's the thing, but where? I mean, I could maybe see one of them go to Williams, because let's be fair, I can't see Logan Sargent lasting till next. I mean, I think he might last the year, but I don't think they're going to offer him another contract unless he does something very special. Yeah, I know Williams like the fact they've got an American driver because that opens up a lot of sponsors. Similar to, I think, Sauber having Zhao, the Chinese driver, but he's not. He's been average. He's not set the world alight either. And there's still rumours that Audi really, really want Carlos Sainz, and Audi, the Sauber team will eventually merge into Audi. I think come 2026. But if you're Carlos Sainz, you're 30, you're in your 30s, you're in the peak of your career. Would you want to join a new team knowing that, yes, you could be the number one of that team, but it may be 2 or 3 years before you're even looking at winning races?
Well, 2026, with new regulations that are going to come into play, are really going to change it all up again, really. Will Red Bull be dominant again? I don't know. One thing I did want to talk about is Perez. He's performing so well at the moment. Will Red Bull offer him another year contract, or will they not?
Well, Perez.
Perez.
I know that it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because at the moment, if we have the Perez that turned up at the Japanese Grand Prix, and if he can do that at most of the other races, I think he's safe. But I think I said it last. I said at the beginning of this year. He was lucky, I think, to get another contract. To not be sacked because he was so terrible. But I think whether Perez stays at Red Bull at the moment, unless something changes, is up to Perez. I think his future's up to him, as in like he can decide it by being good. And if we get those mistakes, say like we get to a Monaco now, and he doesn't get into Q3, that will be very bad, for example. And I can almost see that with Perez. I hope I'm wrong. And I think the whole world, with the way Red Bull at the moment, I want a Perez that can now and again challenge Max for the, Max for the race. A bit like Bottas did with Hamilton. It wasn't always a given that Hamilton was going to win every race. And occasionally Bottas, beat him, or Rosberg would beat Hamilton. Even at Ferrari, there was the very odd time that Barrichello was allowed to beat Michael Schumacher. It happened a bit. Yeah, but unfortunately, yeah. So I think he started the season, apart from Australia, which was a blip. I think he started the season. I don't think you could have asked for a better start, minus Australia, for Perez, because every race he's finished second. Apart from that,
Agreed. And I definitely agree with what you're saying. He's probably the only person that has got a machine that's equal to Max at the moment.
Yep.
And it would be nice to see Max in the field a little bit more, and challenge
yeah.
make things a bit.
No, definitely. It would be lovely to see Max actually challenge for once. Yeah. Because let's be fair, other than the beginning of 2022 with Charles Leclerc for the first, third of the season, maybe he hasn't been challenged. He hasn't been challenged properly all the way through since 2021. And even then, at the end, that was fairly, the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was fairly contentious with the way that ended. But yeah, that wasn't, yeah. But there we go. Moving on from that, here's a question then, because obviously we're talking about 2025 and onwards at the moment. Do you think Lewis Hamilton will fight? I'm not saying win. Do you think he'll fight for another world championship before he retires?
Of course he will. I mean, surely every driver's dream to have a drive for Ferrari, surely, and that's been one of his goals since day one, hasn't it? So I think he's got the opportunity and he's got the energy and hopefully the oomph to really give it a go.
Yeah, I'm exactly of the same mind. I think at the moment, I know he denies it, but I can't help but feel that half his head is already with Ferrari now, because he knows at the moment this Mercedes is a bit shocking, and I kind of wonder where he's already thinking about kind of like next year, But I think you're right. I think it might be an absolute rejuvenation for Hamilton. And at the moment, that Ferrari is the second fastest car. And I see no reason why it won't be in 2025, because the cars aren't going to change that much between this year and next year, because they're all, as you said, they're all going to focus on that big change for 2026. And in terms of the rumours going in, the rumours are Mercedes have got a very good power unit, because the power unit things have changed, although I don't think they'll have the advantage they had from 2013 to 2014. The other rumour is, even though they deny that, Red Bull, who are partnering with Ford, their power unit supposedly is they're not as happy with it as Mercedes are currently with theirs in developing, which could be interesting.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I guess yeah, you're right. I guess we'll have to see what happens there, from 2026 onwards. But I do think if they build a car capable of winning world championship, capable of winning races on a regular basis, Hamilton and Leclerc are going to be right there, and it's going to be interesting to see which one of those two is going to come out on top. At absolute peak Hamilton and absolute peak Leclerc, me personally, I'd choose Hamilton every day at the moment. From what I've seen from Leclerc, I think he's a really good driver. I think he can win the championship, but at the moment, I think he makes too many silly errors and too many silly mistakes at the moment. But that can change.
Leclerc seems to sort of fold a little bit under pressure, but I think Hamilton and Leclerc will feed off each other, and hopefully that'll be a really positive outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if Leclerc can learn if Hamilton's still right up there and fighting for wins, I think if Leclerc he'll be able to learn a bit from Hamilton. I imagine, as well, maybe the way he sets the car up or the way he races. Because I think Leclerc, the way everyone says, he's one of the over one lap. He's one of the fastest drivers at the moment currently. I can't deny that. When you look at last year, it was not the fastest car. I think he still beat Max Verstappen to pole quite a few times last year. So yeah, it's just you're right. It's just his consistency and I think he needs to prove to everyone that when the pressure is on, he doesn't fold and he doesn't fold, and that's particularly not making any mistakes during the race. Yeah, and I think once he can show that, he's kind of like 99.5% there, isn't he? And it's just that last bit that I think will make him a real proper championship contender, and that's something we never really saw properly in 22 because the Ferrari just kind of fell off the bandwagon, didn't they? But then Leclerc made that massive mistake. He was leading in France and he spun and hit the wall, which was slightly embarrassing for him. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see. And as you said, Alpine mentioned, it's not impossible that they sell to Andretti if Andretti wants to get it 2026. But do you think? I mean, you think about your Renault, who own Alpine. How embarrassing would it be if you was to sell this year or next year, knowing that you're selling at a point where your team is one of the slowest on the grid as a works team?
Well, they seem to have a falling from grace, haven't they, Renault? Who knows what's going to happen? It's all a bit mystery at the moment.
No, yeah, Mal, you're right. It is. It's not good at all because you've got Alpine. I mean, bear in mind these are the same team in 2022 under the new rules. I think they beat McLaren, didn't they? I think they finished fourth, like just a couple of years ago. And I don't understand. I mean, the new boss has come in. They got rid of Otmar. They've got rid of like quite a few key players, Alan Permain. They've got rid of like quite important people from their team. I just don't know what's gone on there. Bear in mind, this is the same. They call it Team Endstone, but Alpine and Renault, they're the same team. I mean, essentially that were, but won in 2005. They're Fernando Alonso's old team that won championships and won races, and before that they were Benetton. So they were winning with Michael Schumacher. I just don't understand how far they've fallen. I don't get it with all those resources.
Yep. Is it a management problem or is it something else that we're behind the scenes that we don't know about? But yes, they definitely have a big falling from grace, and it's a bit disappointing because I'd like to see Pierre Gasly and Esteban up there a bit more on the field.
No, absolutely. I'd love to. Yeah, I think we all want to see them do well because obviously they've got quite a few fans. It's Team France as well. I mean, it's sad that we don't have a French Grand Prix. It's a bit ridiculous, but we've got 3 American Grand Prix. I know America's a really big place, but I just think it's weird in Formula One where we have French and German manufacturers and we don't have a French Grand Prix and we don't have a German Grand Prix. It's just I find that absolutely crazy. So, but that's by the by. Because I think Barcelona. I think next year or 2026. The Spanish Grand Prix will be going because there'll be a new streets track in Madrid, and I don't know. I mean, what's your opinion? Do you like street tracks, or do you prefer going to like circuits like your Silverstones, your Suzukas, your Belgiums, or do you think Miami, Singapore, Las Vegas? I mean, are you a fan of the street circuits, Mel?
I don't mind the street circuits, because they throw up especially with how tight the tracks are, there's sort of hardly any mistakes, but and the circuits seem to be a bit more forgiving in that regard.
Yes.
I think a mix of both of them I quite like.
Yeah, no, I'm not against street circuits, but what I don't like is when you have too many on the calendar, if that makes sense, I think when you've got too many, like you've got Miami right now, you've got Singapore, you've got Baku, you've got Las Vegas, potentially this new Madrid circuit, you've got Monaco, for example. And I think you're right. They pose a really good challenge, as in at a street circuit, if you get it wrong, you're out of the race. Whereas if you get it wrong somewhere like in Austria, you just go wide a bit, and your lap time might be deleted, but you're still in the race. Yeah, but I do find that when you take away maybe like Monaco and some of the street circuits do start to look a bit the same, like from the onboard. Oh, look, another right angle. But yeah, I do think they are the only circuits at the moment, other than maybe like your old school Japan or when you go to the Netherlands, Max Verstappen's home circuit, because there's a lot of gravel and grass there. They're one of the few levelers where if you make a mistake, that's it for you. And that's, I think, one of the positives about, as you mentioned, about the street circuits. And it's something, until you mentioned it, I probably didn't really think about too much. Because as you said, all these tracks, even Silverstone, they got so much runoff now. If you make a mistake, that's it. I mean, when you back in like the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s, if you made a mistake, that was it. You're out of the race, or you're pitting for like a new front wing or something. So. But there you go. So 2020, so onwards to 2025, we'll have Hamilton obviously and Leclerc. We don't 100% know who's going to be in the Red Bull. We're thinking at the moment, the way he's driving, maybe Perez, as you mentioned, possibly Sergio Perez. But then Carlos Sainz, where does that leave Carlos? I know we've spoken where does that leave Carlos Sainz then? Excuse me. I mean, this is the only guy in the last since 2023 to win a race outside of a Red Bull.
Yes, well, I really think that Sainz' best bet is with Mercedes. Who's going to take that Red Bull seat if they get rid of Perez? Will Yuki go there? Who knows? Maybe Lawson.
Maybe who? Sorry, Lawson. I would love Lawson to go there. I would really well. I mean, there's yeah. We could speak about Lawson a bit because that's quite interesting in itself. You mentioned Yuki Tsunoda. I think Yuki at the moment he's proving. As much as we both love Daniel Ricciardo, but I think Yuki at the moment he's proving himself, isn't he? Yes, he may have taken a bit longer to get there than some, but I think he's really solid. However, I don't know. There's all these rumours that Red Bull would have signed him by now. Surely Red Bull would have been interested in him by now. That's the thing. But, and here's the other killer, Honda are going to Aston Martin for 2026. If you're not going to have, I would still choose a Yuki Tsunoda over a Lance Stroll to go to Aston Martin. Because then you've got an experienced Fernando Alonso and a fairly experienced but still fairly young Yuki Tsunoda. And I think that could be quite an interesting pairing.
I think so too. I'd have to agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So I mean, let's talk about Liam Lawson then. The man that, obviously he's from New Zealand. Yeah. So you know, at some point you two may be related. if you look, but I mean, no, but without trying to be biased, if Lawson starts this year instead of Ricciardo, do you think he has better results than Ricciardo this year so far?
This year?
Yeah, if you put Lawson in, if you'd have chosen Lawson over Daniel Ricciardo at the beginning of this year, you know, you had him in the Visa Cash App RB or whatever they're called now, does he do a better job than Ricciardo, do you think?
I think so. Poor Daniels, he's just really had some bad luck, and looking at a lot of comments on a lot of sites, yeah, he's definitely being trashed. As much as I like him,
yes, yes. Yeah, no, you're right. I think. I mean, I was talking to people, some of my friends the other day, and like you, they're thinking, oh, it's over for Daniel Ricciardo. I'm like, oh no, he's still got a chance. But I can't help but feel that unless in the next 2 or 3 races he completely destroys Tsunoda, almost finishes on the podium, or does something quite miraculous, it is looking quite difficult to see Daniel Ricciardo keeping his seat beyond the end of this year. And if he continues being really bad, there's even some suggestions that some people have said that they may well put Lawson in maybe after the summer break. Red Bull have not said that, obviously, but when you look at a team that's quite happy to get rid of Nick de Vries and other drivers halfway through the season, you start to wonder, don't you? Even if it is Daniel Ricciardo.
Yep. You have to perform with Red Bull, otherwise you get the boots on the door.
I know that they're like a savage step parent, aren't they? Yeah, kick you out if you don't pay your dues. Yeah, I mean, that's why I was so shocked for Sergio Perez, but I'm equally now happy for him because clearly they made the right decision after the first 4 races. He's done really well. So,
well, all the pressure in the world coming down on Ricciardo, so hopefully he pulls the rabbit out of the hat and does perform. But we really jinxed him for the Japanese Grand Prix, didn't we? We kept our fingers for him. Look what happened.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? We did. I'm probably going to jinx him now as well because you got the Chinese Grand Prix. The last time we had the Chinese Grand Prix was 2019 with the old cars, with the, before 2022. And to add to that misery, potentially for some, it's a sprint race weekend, which means the teams only get 1 practice session rather than 3 to set the car up. But Ricciardo's won there before as well.
Yeah, well, we'll just keep an open mind on that one and quietly wish them good luck.
I like that. Quietly wish them good luck. Yeah, no, definitely. So what I'm going to say to you then, just in case we don't get to talk again, Mal, on the air before the Chinese Grand Prix, I'm going to have to ask you, who do you think is going to be on the podium? I mean, you got it fairly bang on, mostly for Japan.
Max, I think maybe. Well, it's pretty hard to say, isn't it? It's such a different circuit in Japan. Yeah, I'll go for Sainz again, maybe third, and maybe Lando again.
Whoa! So you're going for Max, Sainz, and Lando. So you're not. So no Piastri on the podium, no Perez on the podium.
That might change after the sprint race practice.
It could do. No, I think that's pretty bold. I mean, fair play. Yeah, okay, Max. Yeah, I think I've got Max as well. I'm going to go Max. I'll probably, at the moment, I'm going to go Max, Leclerc, because I think he needs a wake up. And I think if Sainz finishes on the podium again and he doesn't, people are going to start asking questions as to why did we sign Leclerc over Sainz? That's the problem. Yes, I'm going Verstappen, Leclerc, and Perez. Although I secretly would like your version of events because I'd love Lando getting on the podium again.
Mine's more of a wish list, really, than.
Well, I mean, yeah, but this is the thing. We've got the sprint race, and they might not set the car up. The last time Red Bull had trouble setting the car was in Brazil in 2022, and you had a Mercedes 1-2 then. That was George Russell's first and so far only victory, with Hamilton finishing second. So, and as we know, Singapore last year, when Red Bull got the setup wrong, it showed that no matter how good a driver you are, the car is always like about 80% car, 70 to 80% car, 20, 30 to 30% driver. The driver can't make a difference. I mean, it's almost like, you could be the best driver in the world in a mini metro, but you're not going to beat a Ferrari, are you? And I mean, that's an extreme example of what it's like. But yeah, and the setup, they didn't get the setup right. In Singapore, Red Bull didn't. That could happen again in China. Especially, I mean, also, you imagine their only practice session, you imagine it comes down with rain. That would really suck for some people. But yeah. Okay, well, I would love your podium to be true though, Mal. I would gun for that. And to be fair, I reckon you get pretty decent odds if you did it now, as well before the first practice session. So, yeah. So before we go, one more thing though. At the moment, it's the 14th of April. Mal, who do you think is going to finish second and third in the Drivers' Championship? Assuming Max is going to win it.
Yes, I think that's probably a real safe bet at the moment.
Definitely.
I think Perez will come second again. I mean, he's got the best machinery.
He does.
He's performing well at the moment.
Okay, $1 million question. Who's finishing third?
I think that might be a toss-up between Sainz and Leclerc. And my money's on Sainz.
Whoa! That is going to be one for the books, isn't it? The unemployed Ferrari driver that Ferrari are going to basically said, you know, sling your hook, mate. You're out at the end of the year. Here's your bags. Is going to beat Leclerc. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's going to be. That's quite interesting. Oh, that is very interesting. So, okay. Well, I'll pretty much leave it at that. Hopefully we get to speak before the race. If not, it's not the end of the world because we've got your podium predictions. So thank you so much, Ralph, for joining us.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been awesome.
All right, thank you.